Thankful for her way these stories hold on to the lifetime we won't get back. I know these rivers carry people tend to stick to you after time. Places tend to do the same as we do. This river carries on and on.
Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake Lamore, and today we're talking to someone I've wanted to, like when I was making out a list, when I was first coming up with this idea of Kankakee Podcast, I was like, Bill Yohnka is on my list. He's one of the first people on my list. So, and there's really no way to, other than I know you've heard me call you Mr. Kankakee, which I consider you to be Mr. Kankakee, and a lot of people do. That's really how I introduce you to people is Mr. Kankakee. So, welcome.
That's very. I knew I'd get that eventually. Good. That is very cool. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
I for a while I shied away from when people say, "Oh, Mr. Kankakee." I was like, "Oh man, I don't know. That's a little pressure." But then you just kind of embrace it. Like, you know what? It's kind of my brand. I have changed my email address, Kankakee Bill.
So, your Instagram,
my Instagram,
right?
Kankakee Bill.
Yeah.
I can't move now. I'd have to totally re-identify.
You really would, and people would be so shocked. They would just be like, "Oh!" And I think if you ever moved, I think Kankakee would fall apart. I really do.
I'm pretty sure it won't.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
There's people
even if it was just like to Bradley or Bourbonnais, man, I think that would just say something. That would just like you wouldn't even have to post anything on social media or even tell one person. Like there'd just be this feeling in the air of like it's like a disturbance in the force.
Kind of like that. But I guess I kind of always counter this a little bit because from when I moved back here and started doing different things, people always kind of made things about me just because I was the one who talked and I was the one who was kind of in front of some things. And I don't know, my default setting is always like, hey, I'm a guy, and there's lots of the people who are working on things who don't want any credit or don't want the spotlight. And so I'm the person who's sometimes in that. But I think the biggest thing is when you have things going, like you want to be able to walk away and have them still go on without you. You know, I that's the way I feel about things that I work on. You want that, like, it's not me, you know. People ask me, you should have something named for you one day. Like, that's a weird thing to tell somebody while they're still alive. But then I'm like, well, I feel like that already is. If something says Kankakee on it, I feel like that's me.
That's Bill.
That's me. So I don't need Yohnka's hard enough to spell. You don't need Yohnka on anything. It already says Kankakee.
It's true. It really is. It's true. But I bet there will be something either for you, or maybe there already is something for the Yohnka family. I don't know, because it's not just you. It starts even with your dad, and I don't know if it goes farther back than that.
Yeah, it's weird that I think my dad was the first one to be kind of a extrovert person around town as a Yohnka. But yeah, the original Bill Yohnka was my grandfather's, I think, grandfather, who lived in a back room of a shop in downtown Kankakee, who immigrated from Germany and came, the story we hear, And my uncle, who recently passed, always drew pictures of the original Bill who came to Kankakee.
Oh, okay. Do you guys look anything alike? Do you have pictures?
No, we look nothing alike. Oh, the genetics have done some mutating and is a whole new creature now.
Your uncle was Paul.
My uncle was Paul.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear of his passing, but I think maybe because he had a show on KAN,
Yeah,
right?
so
I think
we did a show together, and then it went on after I left it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that when you left it and went to X Country?
Well,
or?
I left it and did. I guess man, it all mumbles together.
Because
I left it and did X Country, but I also started doing every morning on WKAN.
Oh, that's right. This was just a Saturday.
I said Saturday.
That's right. Okay.
And so I started the Saturday show, and then I started doing that, and then Allison Beasley was there helping out sometimes, and then Carl Maronich would come in.
Yes.
And my Uncle Paul would just, we never had like a plan. He just showed up every time. He showed up every time, and he wrote amazing old-time radio dramas, and he had a wit about him that was just unlike anyone I know. And it's the kind of thing that it's not for the masses. Not everyone's going to get this, but the ones who do are going to love it.
They're going to love it. Yeah, absolutely. So I think there was one point where it was just Carl and it was Paul.
Yeah.
It was the Super Saturday or the really big
show.
The really big show. So I think that's when I met your uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Was probably, I was either in high school or I was just out of high school, and I was in a KVTA production, and we were promoting that production. And I remember being on a Saturday morning show at KAN, and I remember Carl being there. Mm-hmm. And in recent years, getting to know that your Uncle Paul was also involved with that show, I'm like, oh, that must have been who it was that I, had talked with. And I can't, like I said, I can't remember. Sometime in the probably the late 2000s.
Yeah.
This would have been.
Yeah, and I may have still been doing it and just not there at that day. I'm not sure.
That could be.
Yeah,
I know you definitely were not there.
Yeah.
I do, but I definitely remember Carl being there and someone else, and I bet it was Paul.
But like, what I loved about doing stuff like that was that there was so much creativity, and somebody like my Uncle Paul he's just an amazing writer. Like created characters, created storylines, created weird stuff that wouldn't work anywhere else, but you could do it there. And then we had Pam Powell on.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Pam.
Yes, I do. I met her a couple times.
She'd be great on your podcast as well.
Yeah, I would actually like that. Yeah.
But she just started coming on the Saturday morning show on WKAN reviewing movies. And now, all of a sudden, she's flying around the world and on TV and like, wow. Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Like somebody can just say, this is what I want to do, and you go do it.
Yeah. She goes to music festivals all over the place.
Well, yeah.
Or not music festivals, film festivals.
Yeah.
Film festivals.
That's more her thing. But
yeah. Film festivals is what I meant.
Yeah.
I met her once or twice at the radio station. She had come in for some special events. I can't remember. It was a film showing of some kind. Mm-hmm. at the library or something like that she was promoting, and I met her there, and it was cool to meet her and talk with her about what she does. So.
And that's the kind of thing I think is wonderful about a place like Kankakee, is that people like that have an outlet. It's like not just an outlet; it's not like one of the big stations in town.
Yeah,
and people can flex their creative muscles like that, and people who, like my uncle was retired at the time. Carl has another important job in town and like had a passion for it. Pam just decided like, I'm going to go after this thing. And they all did. And I feel like, hey, maybe like, okay, I did a little Saturday morning show, but like all these other people got to like follow a thing they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I feel good about that.
Yeah, I definitely do too. And bringing up your uncle and then also Carl reminds me of a commercial that I had helped Carl put together in recent years. And you probably have heard this Riverside commercial. It was done in an old radio style
Exactly.
And it was a play. I believe it was a play on play of, I think, Who's on First.
Yeah, I think that's.
But it was about Riverside's My Chart.
Yes,
but it was like the classic Abbott and Costello Who's on First kind of skit, I think, if I remember correctly. And I helped. They came to Milner Media to record the voices. And that's all I did. I didn't put it together. I just recorded. I think it was Lewis and his name is on the tip of my tongue. A great local actor.
I remember Lewis being involved in that.
Yeah, that was before Lewis. Like, he was just about to go to California, move to California. Lewis Wood.
Yes.
I don't know. Sam? Is that the other guy's name? I don't know why I'm totally. I'll think of it later when it's not even relevant. But they came in and they did it, and they did such a great job. So I wish that commercial was still running because I enjoyed listening to it.
And I think that people will think that kind of style of radio, that I love that old-timey style of radio.
Yes.
And I think that people think of that now and think, oh, that's dated. That's not interesting. Actually, there's some really funny, great ways to tell a story in that style. And I think it's timeless, but I'm biased.
I absolutely do too. I love listening to, I think it's WGN on Saturday nights.
Oh, goodness. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. And I forget what time it is now. It's always super
late.
It's super late at night. And I forget the name of the show even because I don't always get to catch it.
Oh, I'm not planning on listening to it. I just listen to it when I'm in the car on Saturday nights. I'm driving home from stock car races somewhere. I'm like, oh, it's one of these nights.
Yeah.
This is cool. I'm going to love this.
Yes. And usually when I'm able to listen is if I'm in Chicago at a show of some kind. And, it's 11 o'clock at night or it's midnight or whatever. And it's a Saturday night. And I'm like, oh, I can listen to WGN on the radio thing. Yeah. And I can listen to these old plays or these old,
the old radio plays.
Yeah, the old radio
and
plays.
They're so knowledgeable, and it's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, my dad and I used to always listen to WGN when we left stock car races. My dad covered the stock car races for many years in Kankakee, and I was the announcer as I got older. And we'd always listen to the same radio as we were going home. and there was once a night where the topic was something about lies your parents told. And I said, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to call in on this. And I'm waiting to talk on the air because I call into stuff like that. You're in the industry. You're like, hey, this is kind of fun. I want to give them something good because I know when you're taking calls on the radio,
they don't always take it.
When it's hit or miss if they're going to be good.
Yeah,
as the person on the other end.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you want to help them out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I always think I'm helping them out by giving them some good material.
Yeah, you're trying to. I mean, they technically usually the person that's answering the phone is the producer.
Yes.
Not so much in our small market. We don't have producers.
No, you're gonna get Wake and Jake, or you're gonna get actual Bill Yohnka.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I was waiting, and the person on before me is my own father, talking about a lie that his father told him. And I got on the air and I'm like, wait, you're not going to believe this. That was my dad who just called. And
they're going to think this guy's full of crap.
Yeah. And I think he made something up. He just thought it was fun. So he, made up a lie.
So were you guys not in
we weren't in the same cars.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, you weren't in the same cars.
So you're both driving home from the stock car.
And
races.
He was living in Joliet at the time, I think, and I was in Kankakee. So I was it was amazing. Okay. Sorry to just grab the wheel and steal your podcast.
No. Dude, this is awesome. I knew this was going to be an absolute blast having you on because there's so much to talk about. You do so many great things. You're so involved with Kankakee. I mean, my early memories of you go back to high school. You probably don't remember it because I was a student.
And you were a trumpet player.
I was a trumpet player. At
the Mac auction, I remember you there. I was like an MC or something for a while or doing something there. And you were blowing the trumpet every time when something happened. I'm not sure.
I don't know if I ever did that. I remember one year at the auction, they had me play the Wizard of the Wizard of Oz.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was anything trumpet related with that.
Oh,
but
well,
it was
I'm meshing a couple things together.
well, yeah, but that was once again, that was like mid 2000s. So I remember that was the first time I had met you. This was when, Gina Lamore was still working in, was it called admissions? I don't even know.
She was in like the development.
Yeah, she was in that's what it was called. So Gina Lamore was in the development office. She's wonderful.
Yeah. Imagine if the world had more Gina Lamores.
the world would be a lot better off.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot more things done. That's for sure.
But then just people just feeling good. Like, you're just like, I've never been around her and then like, well, she's in a bad mood, or she brought me down.
That's true. If she is in a bad mood, she's usually funny about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, and by the way, it's a distant relation.
Okay.
People ask me that all the time. It's a very distant relation. I don't even know. We're not super closely related. It's like some type of distant cousin. So anyway, I remember, at that time in the mid 2000s, Gina working in the development office, and you were involved with, was it the
alumni?
The alumni.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I had met you before some type of event and this was probably during school hours or something, because you were pretty involved with the alumni association at that time.
President at one time, yeah,
Okay.
like chairman or whatever they called it. Yeah,
I think maybe that would have been the time you were chairman, because you're a graduate of Bishop Mack.
Yeah.
So, but as far as I know, you're not in the or you're not like the president of the alumni association.
Well, not these days. No.
Yeah.
Well, and not. I'm still fine with Bishop Mack and everybody, but now I'm, with one of my jobs at Kankakee School District, I'm kind of all in over there,
right?
Like announcing basketball games and running around and wearing. Today I'm wearing the jersey because it was a high school homecoming week, so it was.
Was that this week?
It's Jersey Day today.
Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I should wear it all the time.
You really should, considering your position with the District 111.
And now I'm feeling the feeling all too well when you start talking about things that people can't see. They have to see it.
Yeah. So so Bill is wearing a Kankakee. It's got to be a basketball. It's a vintage basketball jersey. How vintage is that? Did they just
I would say 2001 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's 20 years old.
20 years old.
Yeah.
And I bought it for $5 when it had a sale. But I would love to find who actually wore number 4, and I'd give this to them.
I mean, maybe they're listening to this.
Yeah.
Right
so if you
now.
played basketball for Kankakee and were ever number 4, find me at the farmer's market. I'll bring it. I'll give it to you. I don't. It's not something that it's cool. I love it, but it's not. It's more important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't remember. I just remember your face really well from being in high school at Bishop Mack, and then I can't remember when I ever saw your face again after that. It was probably honestly when I started working in radio, to be honest, and it was like, oh. We were both in that. I was like, oh, okay. It's just, and then it just kind of goes from there. And, but what I want to go, to the beginning of like the Yohnka family. I mean, you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. It was a different Bill.
Yeah, there was like the original Bill that originally moved to Kankakee, settled in Kankakee, like downtown Kankakee, like a block from where I live right now. It's kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
But, my dad grew up in Shabance, and my grandfather and his brothers had a construction company there and built quite a few houses.
So was Bill like your great-great-grandfather?
The original Bill would be my great-great-great-grandfather.
Oh, okay. Like
so
either 3 or 4 greats.
Yeah, whatever. One or two of those. I need to study that stuff better.
I'm surprised. I just figured you knew, because I know you
should. I should know. Man, I should dig into that and know exactly. But my grandfather was really, really into it, and he knew that I was Bill Yohnka the 4th. So that means he was the 3rd, and that means it was the great. this isn't the best audio right now. It's kind of inside baseball, inside the Yohnka family.
But did anyone ever put the numbers behind their names? Do you put? I've never seen
my grandfather kind of made a deal of it because he didn't have a kid himself named Bill. I think he was like the first one who didn't name one of his own offspring Bill.
So there's a little bit of
a gap.
A gap there.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't really go with the numbers
and
at that point.
My grandfather Bill was like, he took care of like all the cemeteries. So like he was really into
in like a certain area
Catholic cemeteries for the Joliet diocese.
The Joliet diocese.
He in like the Kankakee area. So he's like a cemetery superintendent.
Yeah. Okay.
So which doesn't match the kind of things my dad and I have did with our lives, like in media and like, being more public. He was more like, I'm going to drive a truck. I'm going to get to where I'm going to go. I'm going to have a crew of guys who are going to dig a grave and we're going to lower a body in there. We're going to fill it back in.
Yeah.
And then, like we're going to build some houses, really like paid attention to every penny he spent and told me I should sell insurance and be an auctioneer on the weekend. And I was like, okay, no. I'm not doing it. But
I cannot picture that at all. Bill Yohnka selling. No, it's true. I mean, why do you think so many people are in insurance?
But he was really, he taught my dad and my uncle how to dig graves as a kid.
Did that get passed on to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, really? So you know how to dig a grave?
I know how to dig a grave, yeah. So when my grandfather died, my dad and a cousin and my brother and Pat Kennedy, who you probably know.
Yes.
He dug my grandfather's grave with me.
Really?
Yeah. No, my grandfather? No. What grave did he dig? Maybe it was my grandmother's. Anyway, he knows how to dig graves now. But my grandfather, had, we dug it by hand. Now they don't really do that.
Oh, no. I was going to say, that was going to be my next question. Did you actually dig it by hand? How long does that take?
It takes a little, it takes about, like 3 hours and 6 beers. you have to pack a cooler and you have to, and when.
Okay. How do you, if you're doing this by hand, how do you keep it square and rectangle, I guess.
Yeah, but you got to keep the angles. You could say you're keeping it square.
Square, yeah. Yeah, how do you do? Do you have like a frame?
You put a box. You put wood around it. So you're saving the grass outside of there, and then you're cutting real specific lines, like you were cutting a garden or something, and then you keep it square. Yeah,
this is so fitting since this episode is coming out in October. Like this is
what it is. But what's weird about it is when you're doing it, it's the least morbid thing.
Well, sure, it's just a job.
It's a job,
point, right? And, I mean, but if you're, how was it? Was it any different when you? Probably not for your grandfather because he was a grave digger himself. So there probably wasn't, or your grandmother.
Yeah.
So
my grandfather died first. So my dad and I went out and did that one.
Oh, you did do that one.
And then we did my grandmother's.
So were there any different feelings, or did you still, since you had experience with that already, did you not feel emotional attachment?
No, there's feelings you have, but the feelings, some of it, and my dad and I felt the same way about it. Like, well, you could be out here doing this, shooting the crap and having a beverage together and digging and getting a hard day's work in, or you could be sitting around somebody's living room around a kitchen table where everybody's weepy.
Yeah.
It's better to like sweat it out.
Yeah.
And you're telling stories, you're talking, and you have something to do. And that's better in our mind. So when my dad passed away, it was just kind of a given that like, well, we'll go do it.
Yeah. Dig his grave.
Yeah.
Huh. Do you have, now, I don't know if this might be like past a creepy point, but do you take videos of that? Did you at all?
I think somebody took some pictures. I have pictures of it, of me being down in the grave. And I was wearing the shirt from the pictures the other day. I was like, oh yeah, this is my grave digging shirt.
Do you wear overalls too?
I do wear overalls, But not when I'm digging graves.
No?
No, not while you're digging
I would
graves.
just think that would be a very grave digger.
My grandfather would have agreed with you, but
Yeah.
if it's not the right season for overalls, you got to wear
Well,
shorts. And
That's true. And
Yeah.
I think your father passed away. Was it summertime?
summertime, yeah.
Yeah,
So that was a short sweating it out.
I bet.
yeah.
And I mean, depending on what that summer was like, it could have been pretty hard to dig that
Yeah, it was.
if it was dry.
It was
I
dry,
don't know.
but there was a lot of people involved in that one. You
Yeah.
know, once we had started the tradition of digging graves, then people were like, "Oh, we're going to come out and do that with you."
Now, hopefully, this doesn't happen. But I think I'm gonna make a will,
Yeah,
and in case I die young and you're still old enough and able enough, it's gonna say Bill Yohnka is gonna dig my grave.
Oh, I'd
Or
do it.
maybe this is good enough right now. This is testament right now.
But-
It's on recording. It's on record. Technically, this is on record. Bill Yohnka.
It is.
I'm gonna have you dig my grave.
I hope it doesn't happen.
I mean, I hope it doesn't, but I'm just saying, like,
I'll do it proudly.
if it
Yeah.
does,
I'll
you're-
do it.
Yeah,
And I think we still have the shovel. So my grandfather had a shovel. It was a shovel he brought to all the jobs. You
Yeah.
had to bring that shovel because he made a notch in it, and you put that in the grave, and that's how you know it's deep enough.
Oh, right, because it's 6 foot high,
Not
right?
6 foot.
No?
Popular myth. Some places
How high is it?
4.5, 5.
Wow.
I can look out it,
Or maybe,
and I knew we were doing it proper because it was my grandfather's shovel.
yeah. But is his shovel? It's not 6 feet high then.
His shovel's not 6 feet high, but
Okay.
it's a pretty long shovel, and it's got a little notch on the handle.
Yeah. And
With-
so
that
you
he
can
made that
yeah.
to like know, okay,
To measure.
we're deep enough.
Yeah.
And it's just always weird to me that we took that shovel that day and used it on his own grave to know it's deep enough. He made that little thing out of convenience, so you didn't have to use a tape measure, something
Yeah,
weird like
right,
that.
right.
You got a shovel, you're already using it. Don't pull
Yeah.
a tape measure out of your pocket. Just do that.
You know, it's funny you dug his, he kind of metaphorically dug his own grave. I mean,
did. Yeah.
you used his shovel, and that kind of reminds me of
All
when
of his tools. Yeah.
you used all, God, that's funny.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of when my grandpa Lamore died. He, for his main floral arrangement, I think that was on his casket or right next to his casket. He was a farmer.
Yeah.
So one of the main weeds farmers kill all the time is thistles, right? Well, I didn't realize this till his funeral, and I wonder if he ever realized this, but when thistles, they grow tall enough or whatever, they actually bloom a flower.
Yeah. And they're nice and white and pretty.
It's very pretty.
lace looking.
Yeah, so guess what was in his flower arrangement was a thistle. And I always thought that was the funniest thing, because literally this man, excuse me, I'm spitting. I don't
That's
mean
okay.
to. He spent like his whole life killing these thistles. And here's one at his wake and his funeral. I just thought it was funny. I learned something new about Bill Yohnka. I did not know you were a gravedigger.
Well, I haven't done. I don't have a lot of experience. I've only ever done it in Shabants, and I've never done it during the wintertime. You know, when you had to dig them during the winter by hand.
Yeah, I can't
It's
imagine
brutal.
that. Especially your grandfather. That was back when winters were winters,
Yes.
and the thaw,
Mhm.
or not the thaw,
The freeze was
the
deep.
frost was
Yeah.
was very deep. Nowadays, that doesn't really exist because of the fluctuating temperatures all the time. But back then,
You had a deep freeze there.
man. So, did he ever talk about how they would dig?
Man, I knew they had to like lay stuff over it so it would be better the next day when you came and did it. But I wish they were around to ask.
Yeah. I don't know. I just imagine him taking like a blowtorch.
That's not-
lighting the old blowtorch. Oh, gotta thaw it out. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then they think it's so weird now, even when we were doing this, like, we got a backhoe over here. It does it real fast. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of we know.
it's
We get it.
it's a tradition.
We get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it'll take them 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
they're done.
And then you still have to square it up.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I just imagine you earlier you said something about 3 hours and 6 beers. I just imagine as
With more of a crowd, there's more beers than that. But with the original crew we had, I think it may have just been coffee, and we had a beer after.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm imagining you drinking while digging these holes, these graves.
Yeah.
And the grave just slowly like slanting. It starts out nice and straight, and then the point where they're at least 3 or 4 beers deep, and then that's when it starts slanting there. And
well, luckily we're working hard enough. You don't really get much in.
Yeah,
but only one person can really be in there at a time.
Yeah, I was going to say there's not room.
Yeah, and then the other people are just wheelbarrow people, wheel in the dirt.
Okay, so so everyone knows it's 6 feet under. But what's the width?
It's not actually 6, as you know.
It is not. Oh, right. We just talked about that.
But the width is, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's just that they laid it out. I'm going to have a hard time now without help from an expert. Like, I'm worried about your grave if it comes to that. It's going to be shoddy work, but it is weird.
Bill, I'm trying to help you keep your skills so that way you never lose them.
I'm ready. But isn't it kind of weird that, like, my dad, and he talked about his father doing the same thing, took a lot of pride in how nice the corners were. These corners are nice. Like the way a carpenter would take pride in like woodworking and things like that, except no one sees it. It's filled back in later that next day.
Yeah.
I just think there's something weird and wonderful about that.
That is, I guess it's all more of a thing between you
and
yourself,
the work you're doing.
your work and that dead body, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
And if, and in the creator, if, you're a believer. So, I mean, because like you just said, no one else is going to,
no one's going to know.
No one's going to know. No one's going to see it. I highly doubt the widow or the family is going to look at that grave and be like, wow, that's really square. They did a really good job on that.
Let me get a level. You got a T-square we can put in here. Yeah. I just want to appreciate this a little bit.
It didn't look like this when Uncle Albert died.
No, they did it with a backhoe.
It was awful. It was not square at all. No. Let me tell you. I appreciate a good grave digging, but yeah, that's really cool to learn. So that's kind of your. How did the moving to Shabance come into play? If Bill, your great,
they started in Kankakee, but then there's been a branch that like went to Essex, and then Momence. There's Yohnkas out in Momence, and then there was a Shabance group of Yohnkas, and then when my grandfather, and then there was some people who came back to Kankakee. So I don't.
Was it farming, or you mentioned your grandfather built? He was a builder as well as a grave digger. So maybe it was building homes.
It was building homes down there, but others. He grew up on a farm.
Okay.
So that kind of life was where they were.
Yeah. Do you know of any houses that he built in the area that you can go to this day and be like, my grandfather built that house?
There's a couple in Shabance that I think my dad pointed out to me. A couple streets where it's like there's a lot of them when there was a little mini housing boom in Shabance.
Right. I mean, well, when would that have
that
been?
Would have been 40s, 50s, 60s.
Oh, there was definitely a boom there.
Yeah.
We all know that after the war.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool, though. It's cool that if you know those houses, you can point them out and say, my grandfather built that house.
I think there's a lot of people, and that's what's kind of cool about people with history here. And you're probably finding this all the time.
More and more.
That it's not just like driving through a place. You're looking at things that your family did.
Yes.
Or
someone else's family.
Or someone else's family, or a friend of yours. Like, I love it. I think that's what makes being here kind of special to me, is that I can drive through other towns and I can kind of appreciate the stories, but here stories are all kind of sort of connected to.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think I want people who are new to our community to feel that.
Yeah.
To like, okay, how do we get you into this?
Yeah.
So
you grew up in Kankakee?
I grew up
or did you grow up in, or
Kankakee.
did you start in Shabans?
No, I grew up in Kankakee for the first 5 years or so. Then we lived in Bourbonnais for most of that time, and then I went to college. So I didn't even like when people say Mr. Kankakee. Well, I didn't even live here growing up, but like Ernie Banks and Ron Santo weren't Cub fans when they were kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They became identified with it when they grew up and became part of it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That makes so much sense. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Until you put that in perspective. Now, where did you go to college?
I went to college at Lewis University, which is wonderful. It's near Joliet and Romeoville, and it's kind of like that kind of small community where I could have a radio show, even though I wasn't a major in that program. I was in theater because.
Is that what you majored in?
No,
What did
I majored in political science and marketing.
Really?
I had an internship in Washington, D.C., so I had to declare a political science major to get credit for it.
Okay.
But I did all sorts of other stuff. I played on the college tennis team because I had a tennis racket in my room. They said, "Oh, you got a racket? Oh, you can be on the team." And traveled all over the Midwest for one season because I had a racket.
Yeah.
So I just love that kind of environment where, hey, jump into this, do it. So that was a great place.
So yeah, it's pretty much like, hey, you got a basketball? Okay.
Not quite.
I know it wasn't quite for basketball, but for tennis it would be.
Yeah.
It's really interesting so when did I remember the last time we saw each other, and not the last time, because we saw each other at Oktoberfest for like a hot minute, but like the last time, I'm pretty sure the last time we actually talked for a length of time was actually just down the street from my house here.
Kayaking.
You were kayaking. I was just out for an evening walk in my neighborhood, and I'm walking by the park, and I see this car and I see this guy putting his kayak on top of the car, and I'm just looking at the silhouette, and because it was like dusk.
Time. Yeah, dusk.
It was
too late to be on the water, technically. Yeah.
And you were just finishing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like looking, I was like, I think that's Bill Yohnka. So, we stopped and we talked a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think that's when you told me where your first radio job was.
Oh, my first radio, I had a radio show in college, but my first radio job came at WGFA in Wadsika. And it just became a thing because, I don't know, I was hanging out with people I knew at a Clifton Central, in my Iroquois County roots, at a Clifton Central football game. And I, for some reason, was up in the booth, just hanging around with people. And I said, maybe a little too loud, "Oh, I could do that."
Oh,
about the radio team. I said, I could do that. And the guy heard me, and he was a guy, great friend of mine, turned out to be a great friend of mine, Justin Kaiser, who's passed now. But he was just phenomenal. And he was not a football guy, was not a sports guy, just got pressed into duty that night. And so he took off his headphones, looked back at me and said, "What are you doing next weekend?" And then, I interviewed that week, and then all of a sudden I started doing sports on the radio, and they said, "Well, we need you for Saturday mornings too." Okay, well, I'll do the Saturday morning sports show. I'll do that.
And that was that an hour-long thing?
Is that what's 45 minutes or an hour?
That's a long time.
It's a long time to talk about sports.
Yeah.
And then to have
it's all local pretty much,
local
right?
stuff. I'd have to be finding scores from Northern Indiana, which I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And it probably wasn't very good.
Do you have any air checks from?
Oh, I've got some tapes. Yeah.
You got some.
And then I would take great pains to get coaches on, but I always kind of sold the show as I am the person who likes sports the least, who has his own sports show. All these other people who are doing sports shows, they obviously love
They actually love sports.
Oh, they think it's great.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask basketball coaches, so what is the ideal length of a basketball short? What, give me an inch. Give me an inch, or just where it should come on the thigh. Give me a frame of reference. Is it Larry Bird? Is it Karl Malone? Who should I be thinking of for your idea? And I'm sure people in Wadsika were thinking, who is this guy?
Yeah, they're probably
Why aren't
thinking.
they talking about my kid? My kid plays on that team.
Yeah. They're like, this guy definitely is not a sports nut.
I
You
like
know.
sports.
Yeah.
I do.
But there's a difference, like as you said,
Yeah.
between.
I don't like it on a level of.
That's
Like-
more of a love or a. Well, I mean, I know you're passionate about, racing.
Yeah,
but that's
racing and even that. I don't pretend to know how an engine works. That's not my world.
yeah.
Yeah. I barely operate the PA system. That's fine. Yeah. But so that's where I got my start, like in like actual paid doing a radio job.
First paid job. That reminds me of, and I think when you had first told me this story, sometime in the last year when we saw each other.
I probably told it better.
No, that's about how you told it. That's exactly how I felt when I started working Saturday mornings on the Valley. There wasn't a sports show, but you had to do a sports report.
Yes.
And I am like the least sports savvy person. So when I was told that, oh yeah, one of your duties for Saturday morning is compiling a local sports report, and I'm like, I'm just, they're like, yeah, just look in the journal for scores. And, and so,
no.
I mean, and
It's funny because I actually got a different job because I knew something about sports.
okay.
So I worked before I moved back to Kankakee, I lived in Milwaukee for a while after college. And I worked for a promotional company that managed the Johnsonville Bratwurst, great local connection.
Yeah, to Moments.
Big Taste Grill. So they have two of these grills that are big tanker trucks, and the side opens up.
Oh, that's
with
right.
hydraulics.
They still have those,
Yeah.
don't they?
And they travel around the country, and they're like evangelicals for the world of sausage. Like, we're going to bring the sausage to the masses.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, if someone loves sausage, they love Johnsonville.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's just a given.
So I was working on for a different client, Dunkin' Donuts at the time, and the person who was on the Johnsonville account had, I think, said Sooners when she meant Cornhuskers or some kind of sports teams that she was just throwing everything out there, and it was not going well.
Oh man, the
And
Sooners. That's what, Oklahoma.
that's Oklahoma, the Cornhuskers, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And, somebody
Oh,
was making
man.
mistakes and not really in tune with the world of sports, and like, so then my job became like, okay, book the Big Taste Grill at football games. So I had to
Okay.
make the arrangements to get them at football games and like even the Super Bowl. Like, okay, Bill, find a way to get us at the Super Bowl.
Wow.
It was kind of fun.
So that was pretty much putting your marketing degree to work, right?
Kind of.
It kind of, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's dabbling a little bit in the marketing aspect.
In the marketing world, but it's also, I think, you do this. Just solve a problem. Figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah, I definitely do that.
Yeah, you do that. You do that in like all the things you do. You figure,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to figure out something here.
Yeah.
So like when I had to, you don't just look in the phone book and say, oh, I'm going to call the Super Bowl.
Right.
There's no
Hey,
listing
figure
for
out a
Super
way
Bowl.
to get us to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
No, you like, okay, well, I know it was in Tampa Bay. I know the stadium sells Johnsonville. So if I work with the concessions, maybe they can get me a spot somewhere outside the stadium where we could be cooking their brats, bringing them to them. And then, because they got to stock up because it's a huge food day because people get there so early.
right.
And they got plenty of money to spend. And so we worked it out. And we were at the Super Bowl for nothing, which made me like the hero of that company for like a day.
Just a day?
Just a day.
Oh, come on.
There's no glory.
There's at least a good 6 months in there.
There
you
should
know.
be.
There-
There should be. Because when like anything
And
associated with the Super Bowl should be crazy expensive, right?
So which Super Bowl was this? That
Oh
you...
man, it was in Tampa Bay, and I think the Ravens may have won it. I know the Ravens were in it.
This would have been what, early 2000s?
early
or-
2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember that one. It was Ravens and
A football team.
a football team.
Another
Good
team
point.
that like did stuff with pads on and helmets. The other
That's
guys,
what
they
it
wore
was.
helmets. I remember that.
So, working for Johnsonville and then going on from there. I mean, that first radio gig at GFA
Yeah.
was
That was a few years after
It was
that. When I moved
just
back
a
to
few-
Kankakee.
when you moved back to Kankakee. What how did that continue from there? And what else who else were you working for? I know you eventually were working for the city of Kankakee.
Yeah. So I came back to Kankakee, and I'd gone back to school to get my teacher certification. And I came back to Kankakee and taught PE at St. Martin's.
What?
Yeah, St. Martin's.
You taught PE at St. Martin's.
Yeah, when I came back to Kankakee. And I was
this is coming from a guy who doesn't, it's not that you don't like sports.
No, I do. But I'm doing a radio show on the weekends, teaching PE. And then eventually instead of getting a teaching job, I got a job in marketing for KCC, which kind of combined the two things.
Okay.
So from there, I worked at Martin Whalen Office Solutions for a while, did marketing for them. They're all awesome people. And then I got hired away from there to run the Kankakee Downtown Development Corporation and what was at that point the Kankakee Chamber of Commerce. So it's amazing how much has evolved and changed since then. In those times. Yeah.
And now instead of there being like one developmental group, there's seems like there's a bunch of them.
Well,
right?
Kind of.
Sort of.
I think it makes more sense than it used to. It used to be you had different chambers of commerce, and then it was weird because I got hired to run the one in Kankakee, which I always kind of felt like, hey, I'm Kankakee, I'm all in on this, but I want to work better with everybody else rather than I didn't want to be divisive, so.
Was the chamber at that time, was it just Kankakee or was it Kankakee County?
Well, there was a Kankakee County Chamber of Commerce a regional chamber of commerce that moved out of Kankakee. They had been for decades on the corner of Court and Schuyler, like right in the heart of downtown. And then, when they left, people in downtown said, well, we have to have our chamber of commerce of ours. So they found me and had me do that.
Okay. And is that what evolved into the current
and then,
county,
then
Kankakee County
eventually
chamber?
That kind of came together with Bradley. Bourbonnais had their own chamber of commerce. There was a Kankakee Regional Chamber of Commerce, and there was Kankakee. So eventually those things all kind of came together after my time there.
Okay, because I was going to say Bradley and Bourbonnais, they don't have chambers.
No, they don't. It's just Kankakee Regional now.
It's right. It's all Kankakee County Chamber.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It makes sense also for Manteno to have their own kind. They're separate.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Everything hasn't completely grown together there yet. There's still cornfields and limestone or limestone quarries between the two. There's that rural aspect. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if it ever does grow together one day, then that might who knows, that might happen. But that's so many years from now, and who knows what'll happen by then. But
but it's happening slowly.
It really is. It's amazing how Manteno and Bourbonnais are getting closer and closer to each other.
I remember going to Manteno with my grandfather, and it felt like Shabant's.
Yeah.
And he said, I remember riding in his truck, and someday this town's going to be huge. You watch. Okay, I'm watching. And it's really good. It's gotten a lot bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. When just in I'm 31, and just since I was a young kid, there was like 4,000 or 5,000 people that lived there.
What's it up to now?
It's around 10.
You
maybe
do the
a little more.
Kankakee County whole Kankakee County podcast. You should have your population stats ready.
The stats. Well, here's the thing: when the latest census stats came out, there was a lot of the mayors, I think,
not happy.
They weren't happy about it. So that's why I'm like, well, I think it's about 10,000, but I'm not really sure because, this local official said, well, that's not really accurate, So
I love about a place like Manteno is that I'm always there for Oktoberfest to do a live radio thing out there.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing I feel when I go to Shabant's or Ashcombe. This feels like my town. I love it. And I always want people to feel that way when they come to Farmers Market or when they come to Merchant Street Music Fest. I want to feel like, hey, this is my thing. Yeah. Even if I'm not from this town, I feel like this is mine. Yeah. Like they're looking at me as like, yep, you belong.
Well, we know Bill belongs because you're Kankakee, Mr. Kankakee. So,
But I want people who
I
aren't
know.
from Kankakee to
You want it to feel like, and it does feel that way at the farmers markets and Merchant Street and all those different things. I feel like, and of course, Mantino feels like a hometown to me because it is my
actually is,
hometown.
yeah.
Yeah, it actually is. But even though like I don't currently live in Mantino, I actually have felt like Kankakee has become, my it feels like my hometown.
Oh, that's cool.
No, it's been starting to feel that way. And like, I'm in a weird spot in Bradley, Kankakee, because I'm like right on the border.
You
so
are.
like, I don't like, like I'm Village of Bradley, but like I have a Kankakee address. So I'm like, I guess I'm both.
Yeah. This is a weird little spot right here.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's so strange, but I love it. So, cause I get to kind of dabble in a little bit of Bradley, a little bit of Kankakee. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. You're in a cool spot.
Yeah, definitely in a cool spot. So where did the KAN days come into play? Was your dad kind of an open door to that? Because your dad Dennis, he worked for the
Journal.
the Journal,
Yeah.
and well, actually, I don't know. By that time,
He wasn't there at the Journal at that
The
time. He started at WKAN. I think he was still in Joliet.
well, at that time, the Journal didn't own KAN
No.
anymore. It
No.
was all Star.
My connection there, and kind of because of my dad, I think it's healthy to be able to say, hey, I had some privileges in my life because people around me knew other people. And then you had to show up and do the job yourself. But you got a foot in the door because my dad, when he was always on with Mike Tamano when he worked in Joliet.
Okay.
So they were friends. And then when I kind of moved to town, I met him. And then all of a sudden, we need somebody to do Saturdays. We need somebody to do this stuff. But yeah, my days at WGFA in Watsika ended when I got hired by the city to do the Chamber of Commerce and do economic development for the city of
yeah,
Kankakee.
because that's a whole
Well, that's a whole thing. But then the guy who was running Farmers Market, Merle Marksman, who did a great job starting it, I think was just tired of it and brought a box of stuff to my office and just left it and said, now it's yours. Go do it. And so like that was Saturday morning. And I was always in Watsika on Saturdays doing the radio show. So I never went to the farmer's market until I was in charge of it.
Wow.
So then on the first day,
So you have like no, I mean, you sort of know what's going on, but at the same time, you're like,
yeah, I had no idea.
what am I doing?
I have no idea what's going on with this. And it was funny because even it was like back when the Daily Journal's comment section was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yes,
Before
like actually, you're talking about like actually in
on
the
their
paper,
Facebook.
or on the
on the
Facebook.
Facebook. Well, not on the Facebook, on their website. They would, it would be like pre-Facebook being huge.
Yeah.
People would leave just awful comments on that.
They would. And
it was like Facebook training for leaving awful
there was that
troll
on
comments.
the website, but and maybe they still do, didn't they had some type of section in the news.
Speak Out.
Is Speak Out still a thing?
It might be.
I don't hear anyone talk about Speak Out anymore, but that might just because we are living in a world of Facebook.
Yeah, and if you don't know what Speak Out is, it's the old time thing where you could call a number and you could leave a message and they would print it in the newspaper.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
And it was also, I feel like some of the comments were similar to what you read on the Facebook comments.
Sure. Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them I feel like would be kind of on the...
Did you ever call Speak Out?
No, I never did.
Oh, really?
No. But I just feel like some of the comments that I remember reading or hearing about were similar to some of the racy comments.
That stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people like on the Daily Journal comments would say, "Oh, Bill Yohnka's going to do that." Sure. Is he going to get up before dawn and be out there sweeping up the parking lot and cleaning up the puke from No Dogs? I'm like, yeah. Actually, he is. And all these years later,
I'm still
every once in a while.
Except it's not from No Dogs, because No Dogs is
No Dogs is back.
It is back.
Yeah.
Okay.
No Dogs is back. Yeah. It was a little shuffling around, and then they're back in their old spot.
Because I thought, they are back in their old spot?
It's confusing.
Oh my god!
The podcast isn't long enough to go into the No Dog saga, but they just got the approval to keep their sign. They got a new sign that says No Dogs, with kind of an arrow pointing to the door, and it's got a little dog, the little No Dogs dog spinning around on the top of the sign, which I like.
Man,
I know. I am never one for like actually kicking a dog. I think that's awful. But the no dog's dog with the shoe chasing him, spinning around.
Dude, that like says everything. I love how that just captures what happened with the shuffling. Like that really captures it well. Like that's
and
that'll be there for the rest of the time.
No dog, and then Brent and the No Dogs crew actually own the building now.
Okay,
so
and I know that was
a sticking point with that.
Yeah, I had heard that, and like you said, that's a whole nother it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that they're back where they were and they're actually open, because the last time I saw, they just weren't open. Period.
No.
So
now it's open, and there's things left in the market lot every once in a while. Most of the people who go there behave themselves very well. As someone who sits there every once in a while can attest.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But once in a while, you gotta clean up after that, or whatever.
But
else.
It is the kind of thing where people would ask me, like, okay, so what's the big thing happening in Kankakee? What's happening? And I know, like, there are some big things happening right now. When I first started doing the job, I was like, man, we're doing a farmer's market every weekend, and we're doing 100 little things. And I think there's something to that when you're in a place like Kankakee and you're battling perception. And if somebody has a great experience at the farmer's market and they get stuff they can't get anywhere else, and they heard Lupe play, they heard Todd Hazelrig play, they heard some great music, and they had this great day downtown, I think, you got to just keep stacking those things on top of each other to combat anything that, an old perception they may have, or, hey, there's still things that go wrong lots of places. And, I'm always trying to remind people, like, the vast, vast majority of things operate like Music Fest or the farmer's market, and they feel great and come be part of it. And people always kind of said, well, okay, my challenge when I did that job was always saying, how do we translate the success of a packed farmer's market to Tuesday morning in downtown Kankakee? How does that happen? And I think just over time, it does. I think now, places don't sit empty across the street from farmer's market very long before somebody else moves in and wants to do something. So
I've definitely noticed that in recent years of more small businesses coming back to downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really great to see.
And I don't think it's just a Kankakee thing. I think that's just a trend in general. Yeah. And it's weird for a community like Kankakee. That's something I think people don't realize. Like, Kankakee's downtown was like the center of the entire area for a while.
Absolutely.
And there were department stores, and it got big real fast. And then you combine that with, okay, well, the rest of our county isn't a real urban area. So at some point in time, people wanted things to feel really suburban, where they could fall out of their front door and be right next to the front door of a building that they're going to go into. And so, it lost some of its historic downtown charm and that kind of closeness that is, like what people love about some downtowns that are really walkable. People love that, oh, this is right around the corner from this, and this is here, and it's all cute and compact. And Kankakee's like, well, there's a Paramount. It's up there. You can't see it. You got to get up there a ways. No, it's up on top. Once you get to the top of the hill, you can keep looking.
See it. Yeah.
You'll see it eventually.
Yeah.
And then and you go down and like, oh, the depot is like kind of back there. You gotta go find it. It's not like, some of those little downtowns that are so cute and quaint. You go to Crown Point, or you go to some of these places where it's like, ooh, this feels like the set of a movie. Well, those were a lot of things that happened before you or I were born.
Yeah.
Where people said, okay, we need more parking. And yes, you do need parking. But my opinion, I know people would disagree with me sometimes, like, we got enough. We got it. We got it covered. And some people think, well, I don't have any parking right outside my door. Well, you got to get in the mindset. You got a sea of parking out here. That's very rarely, unless it's farmer's market or Music Fest, it's not all full.
Yeah. Unless there's one of those major events going on, parking is usually readily available. but if you have a festival of some kind going on, and yeah, the farmers market has really grown, and that's thanks to you and a lot of other people that have worked so hard at making, putting a lot of energy and a lot of work into making that a thing. Like it's such a thing now for people on the weekends, where I feel like before it really wasn't. But literally, so many walks of life, they make that they have to go, and if they don't go, they're sad.
And I appreciate you saying that because, and maybe it's just the constant wanting things better. And the crew that does farmers market with me now, it used to just be me. Like, oh, this is sad. But now, like, Katie Funk has helped out. Peggy Mayer does stuff. You know, like my son's there helping out. We got other people who are kind of helpers there. But over time, it used to be really strictly agricultural goods.
Yeah.
And there was a farmers market group that wanted it to always be that. That's what I came into. And, well, that's great. And I like that. But I just always felt like, okay, well, we need that, and we still need more of it. We got to have more agricultural parts of it. But you got a big parking lot. Like, let's have the person who's making jewelry. Let's have somebody, as long as they're doing stuff that they do, that they're, you know, and we don't want to keep duplicating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to watch that a little. But hey, make it not-for-profit groups, you know, come and show the community what they're doing. You know, I think it's something for that too. So make it, while it's got kind of agricultural roots, make it about what everyone's working on.
Yeah.
So,
and what, you know, it's small business.
Yeah.
And DIY.
Mhm.
And that's great. And that's why I think people know that they're going to go there and they're going to be able to find something unique and something that is locally coming out of somewhere, you know, in the area,
Right nearby, yeah.
Right, whether it's in Kankakee County, or I don't know, are there any that come from Iroquois? Or
There's people from Iroquois. Some of our great ones that have now passed were from Iroquois. We do have a vendor from Michigan, just because they got access to a little bit different stuff. Like, you know, they got, you know, they've got some fruits and things that they do there that are just on point. So it's the kind of thing where over time, yeah, it's kind of gotten to be where it's a thing people do. And I just want to keep getting that, because I don't want to ever kind of get lazy with it where, oh, it's fine.
Because the minute you do that, you're behind.
You gotta keep going. So things I've been real proud of lately that my friend Katie Funk really led the way on is we got a grant to accept SNAP food stamps, EBT, whatever term you're using for it, accept that at farmers market, but not just accept it. We got a grant to double people's money. So if you're using a link card, instead of getting $25, you get $50.
Wow.
Because this is a private foundation that said, hey, we want to encourage people to use these funds on local fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, local small business.
And sometimes fruits and vegetables at the farmer's market are going to, sometimes they cost a little more than it does in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because they're operating in a scale, you know.
A small scale.
Well, and yeah, small scale, you're going to charge a little more for it because you got to make your ends meet too.
Right.
So,
and it's usually organic.
Or
not always.
Some of it's organic, some of it's not.
Is.
But yeah, it's all locally grown. And I just think it's wonderful that people had the foresight to say, hey, how about we use this money we have to create an incentive for people to spend their money, spend this link dollars locally and buy healthy foods. So that's something pretty cool.
Have you seen a lot of people using their SNAP accounts and things like that?
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have a station set up at farmers market where people, and now we just ran out of the matching funds. You can still use it there, and we give you the tokens to go and spend, but it's still a thing.
Okay, that's good to know, because I feel like some people might say, well, yeah, but do people actually come and do they spend their SNAP money or link card money
they do.
there?
We have to physically write the checks to go back and give to farmers, or, you know, John Bailey who sells honey, or there's other products it's good for. Yeah, we have to write some big checks to those people because people actually use it.
That's really great.
And I feel like that was kind of a missing piece. Like, hey, no, this event that we do, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's for our entire community, whatever end of the income spectrum, demographics, it's for all of us. I feel the same way about Music Fest. One of the things I'm proud of for the crew that does that is that, there's so many music events that I love that are all kind of based around a genre or two. And this is that's an event that's, hey, we want to, if you like, unless it's like death metal.
Yeah, you won't hear anything that's super hardcore or super heavy metal at Merchant, but pretty much anything else is fair game.
If the vibes feel right, it's fair game. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the vibes are overly angry, like
Right.
I always joke that I've never been to a Survivor concert, the band Survivor,
Yes.
the Eye of the
Yeah.
Tiger.
Yep.
But I just imagine guys kind of shadow boxing and then eventually it's a brawl.
Yeah.
Like there's guys my age who just can't help themselves. When that dun, dun, dun,
Yeah. Oh,
they start to-
absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're going.
And they're loaded up on, Brickstone beers, the IPAs or whatever from Brickstone.
Oh man,
so
you have a couple of those, and then
you're gone, man.
you're Sylvester Stallone, and somebody else is Apollo Creed.
Yeah, it's game over. It's all over there, man.
Actually, if Survivor's listening to this,
Yeah, hey,
let us know because we don't think people will actually fight to Survivor. We just don't want a mosh pit where there are kids slamming their bodies into each other like you're into.
Right. Yeah. You gotta have some type of balance and things like that. But, earlier you were kind of bringing up the positive thing versus the negative. I think you were saying like deception or
perception.
Yeah.
The perceptions people have.
And I feel like, some, and I don't know this for sure, but some people might get a perception that maybe like, oh, well, Bill, he ignores the negative things that happen in the area, but I don't think that's so. I think it's probably because and this is more recent years of thinking for myself, but it's just goes back to that philosophy of positive thinking creates positive thoughts and positive actions versus if we're dwelling on.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's, you can't dwell or amplify those things more than they need to be. You got to amplify the solutions to things.
Yeah.
I know there's been some, disagreement about Fortitude being downtown. As someone who lives downtown, farmers market downtown, I differ from some people. Like, I'm excited about that being there because people need a place to go. I want to be able to send people someplace. I want a solution.
Yeah.
So I'm always on board for, okay, what's the solution? Instead of complaining about the problem. I've been parts of groups where people want to get together in a room and complain about the problem, and I can't handle it. I don't think my blood pressure can do it. Mm-hmm. I want to okay, how are we gonna fix it? Let's
figure out a way to fix it instead of just not addressing, but just continually talking about the negative that happens here. So I guess I just want to make it known that it's not that you're not ignoring these things. It's just you want to make you want to focus on solutions.
Yeah.
And
like if I was ignoring it, I would just let the puke that's in the parking lot stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I wouldn't bring up the puke on a podcast.
Right.
I'm acknowledging people have thrown up in the farmer's market parking lot on Friday night.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes there's broken glass.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will have an entire fish dinner. And did you take this from Knights of Columbus and you just left it? I think people left it on top of the car, then they drive away. Then it gets run over, and you're like, "What the heck is this?"
And you think it's puke, maybe.
You think it's puke. Then you're like, "Wait a second, this is tartar sauce. There's some green beans in here, undigested, all of it. This is still in the packaging. We're just gonna sweep it up."
Oh my gosh!
But you got to keep some water around. You got to dilute,
right? Or a hose, a garden hose, or something.
A bucket of water helps too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just, you got to focus on the positive things and grow those things so that they can overshadow the bad things, right?
And creating things, and this is something that I always talked with friends at the Kankakee Public Library, Allison Beasley, who works on Music Fest, Vicky, and everybody else who does farmers market and that stuff, and KDC board. And I think our philosophy was always, hey, create some stuff they can't do anywhere else. Like, hey, it's not like I'm going to downtown Kankakee for charity. I'm going there because the cheese guy at the farmer's market has cheese I can't get anywhere else. They've got olives I can't get anywhere else. They got whatever. Or at Merchant Street Music Fest, there's a band that you're not going to see in Kankakee County unless you go to Merchant Street Music Fest. And now I love that, like, Mantino's doing more stages with more styles of music.
Wasn't that awesome?
It was pretty awesome.
That's been this. If you missed Mantino Oktoberfest, it's kind of laid out similarly, sort of to kind of how Merchant
hats off to them,
is to where there was 3 stages at Mantino Oktoberfest, and they let everyone walk around with alcohol as long as they had
a wristband.
Wristband. So instead of just, okay, this is the alcohol area, music is here. It was just open, and I just loved that so much.
And I love the idea, like, Music Fest, go and explore other things.
Yeah.
And I think for Mantino, like, people have been, you kind of train people to come to an event like that. So people have, okay, here's what I do in Mantino. I get together with people in a tight spot, and I drink beer, or I go ride rides.
Yeah.
And now, hey, wait, no, you can go explore stages over there.
Yeah.
You can go explore, go get food down there and go listen to music down there.
Yep. Or go on the Ferris wheel.
Or go on the Ferris wheel.
After a couple beers, you're like, that Ferris wheel's looking pretty good,
But
I'm not so afraid anymore.
Being out there, I loved it. And I just felt like, okay, I wanted to say people who are still packing into bars, like, okay, friends, there is a phenomenal band right here. You got some room to operate. You can bring your beer out there.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think I wasn't there every night. So
no, I know you weren't, but you were still there on Thursday.
I was there Thursday, then I came back to see was it Toronzo Cannon, who was a CTA bus driver in Chicago and just an incredible blues man. And I wished I would have been there Friday for Lupe was playing Friday. And my guy Miles Nielsen was there Friday, who I think is just phenomenal. If you ever get a chance to hear him,
I'm not familiar with Miles.
His dad is Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
Oh, wow.
I'll tell you that he never will. He plays, he downplays it.
Yeah, I'd be like, "Are you related to that one?" No,
standing on my own. Yeah, but he does. He's great.
Oh wow!
But I guess going back to that about kind of that sense of exploration and like, hey, if you don't come to Music Fest, you're going to miss out on this. So it's not like, oh, I should go support this thing in Kankakee because, well, it's been rough there. It's whatever. Like we're stepping it up and we're doing things really good.
Yeah. So and that's the only way things get better.
Yeah.
Is just stepping up what we have currently at our fingertips.
Yeah.
So
and with the thing that I always get in, people would say like, oh, this doesn't, and I think Allison Beasley said, we all say it like, this doesn't feel like Kankakee. Like, well, what do you mean? Doesn't feel like Kankakee? This is Kankakee. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always get shocked by people who are from here, and maybe you've dealt with this too, who speak so poorly about where they're from.
Yes.
Have you found that doing the podcast?
Well, for anyone that's before I launched Kankakee podcast, and I put out a promo video promoting that.
Becky helped you with that.
Becky Skoglund,
job,
amazing. She did an amazing job. But when I came to, I had to write a voiceover for this video, and the first line that had been coming to my mind when it came time to write the voiceover was, it's easy to see your hometown in black and white, and I say that from personal experience because I know there's people that knew me some years back and they hear that I'm doing this podcast and trying to do something positive with the community and say, oh, how much I, love it and wanting to learn more things about it. They're like, yeah, well, Jake used to always tell me how much he hated living in his hometown and blah, 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 and that's all true. And I'm sure
It comes with age too.
It's an age.
It's hard to find a 19-year-old who just is full of community pride. Which,
and that's
sounds like a fictional character.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a pop punk band. I was angsty.
Yeah. There's no pop punk songs about their town square and their farmers market. And what a good thing it is that there's this community spirit and sense of everyone pulling together.
Yeah.
That's the worst punk song ever. There's nothing punk about it. Sorry.
So yes, like I was one of those people and I have met one of those people. So, I used to have this kind of this bleak perception, and not completely, not like 100% like, the Kankakee area is 100% awful. It was never like that to me, but I always wanted to leave, and do other things. But then that didn't quite work out for me. So it gave me a new perception. And so I as I say, I took a second look at Kankakee County, and I'm like, there's actually a lot more culture and cool things happening here than people realize. We just have to open up our eyes to see it.
Sometimes it takes going away from a place
to
come back and see what's wonderful about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I moved to Milwaukee, and I had friends in Milwaukee that were fun. They were cool people, and they would introduce me one of two ways. This is our friend Bill. He's from Kankakee. Remember that bald guy that shot 3-pointers for the Wisconsin basketball team, Andy Kilbride? Yeah, he knows him. He's from Kankakee. Or they would say, this is my friend Bill. He's from the worst city in America.
Yeah, thank you, David Letterman, for that.
And I would always be like, God, oh, come on. Yeah. And then when I moved back here, I was like, oh, wait a second. No, there's work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's just like I said, it's easy to hate your hometown, but it's a whole nother thing to love it and see the beauty in it and want to be a part of it, or just wanting to help it.
Yeah.
Because who else is going to do it? I mean, we all have to be doing it. We all have to be doing it. It's not just, I'm going to let Bill Yohnka just take this one. Because it's more than just Bill Yohnka's love for Kankakee. It's multiple people,
And there's been, since I moved back here, there's been so many people who are now younger than me, and some people who are older than me who kind of rediscovered kind of this kind of pride they have and kind of wanting to work on things. And I just love that.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me when people are negative the way you're saying. And I think it comes with age a little bit, where you see things differently. But when I see Kankakee, I've always said this, like, it's like my own name. Like, Kankakee's, that's me. But isn't the place you live kind of a reflection of you?
It is.
Like, if you say the place where you live sucks,
then aren't you going to suck?
Aren't you? Yeah. What are you doing? Like, I always want to think like, hey, I'm kind of cool. Maybe the place I live is kind of cool.
Yeah, cool too. Yeah.
Like, I share it with some cool people.
Yeah.
Like, even if there are things that aren't great or we got setbacks, like, hey, I know a solid, great group of people who all call this place home. So can it be that bad?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, so I never get into that. I just doesn't, I don't know how you go through days like that.
I don't either. I guess like I said, I used to have more of a negative outlook on the area, but I think one thing that has helped me, and maybe it's helped others too, but we have such a rich history. And I think that actually has helped some people be like, oh, there's all these cool things that have happened here. Why can't something like that similar happen again?
Yeah.
So I think that at least that's some of where some of my motivation comes from. I learn about all these either cool businesses or cool events or just cool things that have happened here in the area. And I think, wow, like, that's awesome. Like, I want to do something like that, or, it's just kind of, I feel like it's kind of inspiring. It makes you look at your hometown differently, even if that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, and people, I think
the particular thing.
Some people who are a little older than me, I think I have the advantage of never buying a pair of blue jeans in downtown Kankakee. I never did my back to school shopping there. People have this, like, especially like in the downtown area, they have this, people who are older have this idea like, well, it's never going to be like it was. Maybe not.
Yes.
It's not going to be like that.
I've said that recently.
It's going to be different. And I argue like, hey, what is it going to be? What's the next things?
Yeah.
And I've been kind of exploring this idea of like, okay, challenging the people who are so negative, like, okay, so what's next?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to be excited about? What's going to inspire people to make it any better?
Yeah.
And that's hard, I think, for people who have wrapped their heads so much in negativity. And I love people who are negative too. I've got great friends who are kind of negative about stuff. And there's certain things I'm kind of, and we all got our ups and downs.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that goes back to what the downtown is going to look like in the future or in the near future, whether it's the near future or, further in the present, whatever you think it's going to look like, or whatever you think the area as a whole is going to look like, whether it's downtown or not, I feel like if you want it to look positively, we have to go back to that mindset that, because everyone always talks about the thriving days of when, in the 50s and 60s, when you'd go shopping in downtown Kankakee and there was every store you could possibly think of.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of
different.
It was the world. Okay. The world was a lot different, but you know what people did almost always back then is they were shopping local businesses.
Yes.
Not always. I mean, sure, there was.
They didn't really have much option. We could order it from the Sears catalog.
Right. I mean, there were, sure, at one point Sears was downtown and things like that. But sure, there was some of those big chain stores, but next to them was all these little tiny businesses.
Yeah.
And they shopped there. And so I feel like the more we pour our money into small businesses, the more we'll see that kind of stuff come back instead of spending our money on Amazon or, the big box stores or whatever. Finding a local source that has the thing you're looking for, or even a person, a service that has, they can do the thing you're looking for.
Or just creating something cool and unique that you're never going to find on Amazon. I get all my haircuts online now. I don't know if you realize that about me. No, of course I don't get all my haircuts online. I actually got to go to a person to do some of that stuff. And there's still.
I thought you were serious for a minute. I was like, are you saying you schedule it online?
No, you can't. It doesn't work. It doesn't work without the scissors actually coming in contact with your hair. But there are things that are always going to be like that. But I get inspired by, like my friend Andy Palmer, who just is always coming up with creations, creating things, making things. And wow, like local people who do pottery, who are just like got amazing followings online because they do something, they do it, not just like do it. They knock it out of the park in a way that can't be duplicated in mass production. And I don't know, whenever we can wrap our arms around that stuff, and let's go. Let's get on that team.
Exactly. That's. I'm just realizing that more. If we're wanting that economy that we used to have, we need to, make those people known.
Yeah.
And support them and support others who also have ideas for things.
There's this idea in economics about dollar votes. So if you spend your dollars like you're voting for things. So, hey, I really like what they're doing. I like the way I got a friend who's started a chicken farm, Jeff, and I'm going to buy chickens from him because, well, they're more expensive than going to the big grocery store. But I love that he's doing it in his own land, and he's selling them locally. And to me, everything's about price. Well, no, it's not. I'm going to spend a little more money for that.
Yes. And if your friend who's selling those chickens, if he does the same thing and spends that money you just gave him on something else local, then everyone's getting a share of.
You just got to keep that thing going,
right?
And,
so because he has to in turn and invest the money you gave him back into someone else that's doing something, some type of local business or local person.
Yeah,
and
we just kind of use that mindset a little more than just seeking out the lowest price for everything. And some things you have to. I get it.
But, I totally get that.
And my friend Jeff is probably, I'm guessing, never going to go out in outer space with the profits he makes from a chicken farm. I'm guessing. We'll see. It could be really successful.
Right. But I
know what I mean? It's not going to ever be that scale.
Right.
Yeah.
I know it would, and people argue, well, I can't afford these things. Well, I totally get that, but it's almost like you have to go through that transition period of being a little poor for a while until like we're all actually on the same page. I mean, not everyone's always going to be on the same page, but if we had a little more of that, we'd be in good shape.
Me and my friend John Federer always talk about. There's a band I love, Shovels and Rope. You familiar with them?
No,
they're phenomenal. They have a line when they're talking about turning on the money hose, and that we got some ideas. They're going to turn on this money hose, and it's going to go. We got some ideas. There's still ideas, but I think that supporting each other like that, if that was as popular as memes or some of the things,
or Amazon,
or as Amazon, and it caught fire like that. That would be a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it really would be. I mean, just imagine all the money people pour into. I just keep coming back to Amazon because they're like the biggest thing in the world. And and there are small businesses on Amazon. I get that, but it doesn't matter if there's small businesses on Amazon or not. Amazon's still getting that money.
Yes.
They're still getting some of that money.
And here's where I always go back and check ourselves, because we say, I wish people did this. Well, you know what? Dang it. I showed up on Saturday morning and there was a line for buying burritos at 9:00 that was 20 people deep, buying locally made burritos that are right there on the spot. There's mini donuts being made that are being a line of people buying those too. They're just local people from our town, instead of hey, and there's people making jewelry and selling it at a premium right there. It does happen, and it is something people like. It's just like in Kankakee, since our downtown kind of got all spread out, you have to almost create something like farmers market to give people that small town feel again, where they can walk from one thing to the other.
That makes absolute sense. Yeah.
And get what they want. Kind of feel like you're going back to a different
like
time.
It's 1960 in Kankakee again, to where all those.
But you got a shopping cart.
Yeah, and the farmers market does have shopping carts.
Shopping carts, yeah. Isn't that great? Every time I feel, and I know we probably talk forever, but one of the things I love, and whenever I get down, I love finding shopping carts and grabbing them out the window of my car and bringing them back to whether it's the farmer's market or Jewel, or sometimes it's Walgreens or something, but pulling them with my hand out the window. There's something exhilarating about it. You can't go too fast.
I was going to say, because you don't want to scratch your own car.
Oh, no, my car. Oh, you got to look at the back door of my car. It's got all the marks from the carts in it. But you learn fast, you can't go over the railroad tracks.
Oh, man.
That grabs your hand. And that's how you lose a finger.
That's why you're missing a finger.
No, but
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. We just get to talk, and I think about things that inspire me.
Yeah.
That inspires me.
Yeah. Speaking of, I know we could talk forever, and I know we got to be wrapping up.
I've lost all sense of time. I'm sorry.
I have too, and if I didn't have my son and his mom, they're coming over here in a little bit.
Awesome.
If I didn't have them coming over, we could go on. That just means that we're gonna have to have you back for Bill Yohnka round 2.
We didn't talk about the races enough.
We didn't talk about the races. We didn't even get into the rest of radio career. But what I will mention, though, obviously, you are you're the announcer out at the Kankakee County Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
That's wrapping up here this month.
It just did.
Or
just
it did
up.
just
Yep.
wrapped up. Okay. You are the morning show host currently on X Country.
Yes.
Is that still 6 to 9?
I do 6 to 9. Yeah.
Okay.
This is funny. This is a thing I figured you'd talk about right at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were kind of doing that,
We were getting all
but see,
this
this is the thing. I'm sure I mentioned. I already forgot if we mentioned it or not. But you're involved in so many different things,
Yeah.
and you have so many different interesting stories just with your family alone. Like we could talk about your dad for 2 hours. I'm sure.
Yeah, we could
alone, and then talk about just grave digging for another hour.
I was on the Funeral Stories podcast. There's a Funeral Stories podcast. Did you know that?
Is there really?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a podcast for everything.
It's phenomenal. You know? Yeah, they're based in Athens, Georgia, where my brother lives, and they heard about us digging graves. Like, oh, you got to be on the Funeral Stories podcast.
Oh my God.
Goals. Okay.
Dude.
So yeah.
So there's so many things. Like we could do a whole hour just on your time, hosting the morning show on KAN, then moving to X Country, So I'm just mapping out all these things where people can find you at or listen to you at, or they might know you from or didn't know that you were a morning show host. And then, besides being a morning host, you work for District 111 in Kankakee.
Community engagement is my role there, and kind of helping with our new K's media program. So that's really exciting. I love that. And that, you talk about being inspired by our community, looking back at history of things that have happened here, looking to the future. Like there are some kids who you'd say, you know what? Take it. You got this. Like, put me out to pasture. You guys are good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some students who would just blow your mind how just amazing they are in every way. And I know you've done different things about young people, but man, I will sing from the rooftops about young people in our community.
And that's refreshing to hear, because there's always such a negative spin on the young generation that is yet to come. It's always like, oh, we're doomed.
We're doomed. These young kids and their mumble rap. And their mumble rap. You know what?
The mumble rap.
There are some kids doing mumble rap.
Oh, sure. And one of your kids is one of those kids is your kid.
He's part of the mumble rap crew.
Yeah.
But does mumble rap about Frank Lloyd Wright and architecture. Okay,
cool.
How do you argue with that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like nerdy rap, really, instead of mumble rap. That's more like on the nerd
rap. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're just gonna have to have you on for another round.
Well, whenever. But this, like, it doesn't even. It's what I love about doing things on the radio is that I tell people we're just gonna talk.
Yes,
and then it's not even gonna. Forget it's on the radio. Just talk. Just like be who you are.
That's what I love about doing a podcast about Kankakee.
What's cool about that though is you get to talk for whatever.
I can do whatever.
It doesn't have to fit into the next little segment of time you're confined to on the radio.
Yeah, it would only be that would only be an issue if like I was hooked up with a network and they had time restrictions or whatever. But
and
I'm not.
I just want to say this about you doing this. Is that when I first saw Kankakee podcast, wait a second. I'm Kankakee. I do the talking to people. Why am I not? Oh, it's Jake? Oh, he's going to do fine. Because if it would have been somebody who would have done Kankakee and the Kankakee area wrong, I would have been ticked.
I mean, I could definitely be doing some things wrong already.
No,
because you know so much more than I do.
Like, you're handling it. All the podcasts I've listened to so far, you're like delving into people and like their stories and like stuff that you don't really even know that much about yet until you start talking to them. And that's kind of like I want to make known that just because I'm the host of this, I am not an expert by any means. I'm here to learn. But we handle it with grace and kind of affection for the community that we share. So if it would have been a show where it was a Kankakee podcast talking about all the things that are awful here, I would have been not a fan. But since it's you doing it and you're handling it so well, It's an honor to be on.
I'm blushing, man. Thank you. That means a lot coming from Bill Yohnka, seriously, because you were one person I thought, I was like, Bill Yohnka would be perfect at doing a podcast like this, because the idea for Kankakee Podcast has kind of been in my mind for a while. I know it's not original because I know there's been some others.
And people do this kind of in communities and things.
Yeah, they do, yeah. So it's not like, I'm not saying this was my idea. Blah, blah. It's not my original idea. Just this new podcast was my idea, you know. But I there was a moment where I thought, what if I would just produced it and I had someone else?
Oh, you're doing,
you know, because I thought, I was like, do I really have? That's what I said. I don't. I'm not the expert. I just.
But you find people who are hosting things. They don't have to be.
Yeah.
They just have to be the people who can bring out
the information.
And not even in the information, but like people might go in, and you've done radio long enough. You know, people go into something like, even have stuff written down. Like, here's what I want to talk about.
Yes.
Like, we're going to get to what you want to talk about. We're going to bring it out of you.
Yes. I can't tell you how many times I've done scripted interviews on the radio.
Yeah. That's a big thumbs down for me.
Oh my gosh, man. It's here's the questions you're going to answer me. I have the answers I'm going to read off here. And if there's anyone that
is hearing this,
I'm sorry, but that's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So,
I can hear the channels changing. I can hear the buttons being pressed as I'm doing the interview.
Nothing against those people that I've actually done those interviews with. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
So.
And your thing. And I feel like as I listen more, it's like you're like finding your voice and kind of your stride at digging into things.
Oh, that's my that's my phone. I don't even know if anyone can hear that right now. Sorry. I don't know if that showed up in the recording or not. Actually, I think it. Oh, yeah, it did. Oh, that's all right.
That's okay. But it does feel like the talking to you about this stuff. It feels kind of the giddy sort of thing when you were like 17 on the phone with a girlfriend for somebody you liked, and you didn't want it to be over because it's fun. You know?
Yeah.
It's talking about this stuff. I get it. But you're doing a great job.
That it seriously means a lot, like I said, coming from you. And it's been an honor having you on. And like I said, there's so much more to talk about, because I would love to learn more about your dad, because I only learned just kind of a tip of the iceberg on your dad. And I'd love to learn more about him, because he was a staple in the community, just like you are, you know. So
when you can be on my podcast someday, when I develop it,
dude, do it.
All about condiments, just condiment cast.
Okay.
You're just going to try different condiments.
Okay. I'm down.
Is that ready? Is that idea ready for prime time? Because
why not?
It just starts off with something and then goes from there.
Why not? Let's do it. But no, anything else you want to add before?
Oh goodness.
We
you know what? Hey, we talk about, and I always say about like this area.
Yeah.
I feel like when we talk about things that are kind of negative, or I always make the analogy that I feel like our community, the larger community, sometimes is like a 13 or 14-year-old girl who kind of, you might have some acne. Her hair might be a little awkward right now, and she doesn't realize she's beautiful.
Yes.
You've got this light in you that is phenomenal. Don't let the temporary blemishes get in the way of that stuff. So, hey, if we can keep doing things like what you're doing here, kind of spreading that kind of positivity about like, yeah, we got issues, but there's so much good.
Yeah, there is. There's a rebirth happening. I feel like I can just feel it, you know? So, well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake Lamore. You can catch up on previous episodes at kankakeepodcast.com or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can find all the different links to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. All those links to those apps is at kankakeepodcast.com. You can also sign up for our mailing list there. You can find out how you can advertise your business or become a sponsor of the podcast as well. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Kankakee Podcast to stay up to date on everything as well. And our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.
People tend to stick to you.